The air shimmered with an otherworldly glow as the alien vessel descended, its sleek surface reflecting the moonlight like liquid silver. In the heart of a dense forest, where ancient trees stretched skyward and shadows danced between their gnarled roots, the ship settled with a grace that defied its immense size. The human man, whose name was never spoken but carried in his eyes the weight of countless untold stories, stood frozen at the edge of the clearing. His breath caught in his throat, not from fear but from a strange mixture of awe and something deeper, something he couldn't quite name. The hatch opened with a soft hiss, releasing a cascade of iridescent light that spilled onto the forest floor. From within emerged she who would forever change the course of his existence, the curious alien princess. Her form was both familiar and alien, humanoid yet unmistakably not of this world. Her skin shimmered faintly, as though it were woven from starlight itself, and her eyes, those piercing, multifaceted orbs, seemed to hold galaxies within them. She moved with a fluidity that defied earthly physics, each step leaving behind faint traces of luminescence that lingered for moments before fading into nothingness. The princess regarded him with an expression that could only be described as hunger, not for sustenance, but for knowledge. Her gaze swept over him, taking in every detail, from the dirt smudged across his cheek to the calloused hands that betrayed years of labor. There was no malice in her scrutiny, only an insatiable curiosity that radiated off her like heat from the sun. When she finally spoke, her voice was melodic yet commanding, resonating through the stillness of the night. "What are you hiding, human?" she asked, tilting her head slightly, as if trying to decipher some invisible code written upon his soul. "Let me see." Her words hung in the air, heavy with implication. He felt exposed under her unwavering stare, as though she could peel back layers of his being without so much as lifting a finger. Yet there was no hostility in her tone, only genuine intrigue, a desire to understand what lay beneath the surface of this fragile creature standing before her. And perhaps, just perhaps, there was something else lurking in those depths, something neither of them fully understood yet. The man swallowed hard, his throat dry despite the cool night air. For a moment, he considered fleeing, disappearing into the shadows of the forest where the darkness might shield him from her penetrating gaze. But even as the thought crossed his mind, he knew it was futile. This being before him was not bound by human limitations. She could chase him down with ease if she so desired. More than that, though, there was something about her presence that rooted him to the spot, a magnetic pull he couldn't resist. "I'm not hiding anything," he said finally, his voice rougher than he intended. It sounded hollow even to his own ears, a feeble attempt at denial that crumbled under the weight of her unrelenting stare. She tilted her head again, her movements deliberate and precise, like a predator sizing up its prey, or perhaps more accurately, like a scientist observing a specimen under glass. "You speak falsehoods," she replied, her melodic voice tinged with amusement rather than accusation. "Your kind always hides something. Beneath your flesh, behind your eyes, buried deep within your thoughts, there is always more than meets the eye." He shifted uncomfortably, his boots scuffing against the mossy ground. The truth was, she wasn't wrong. Everyone hid things, didn't they? Secrets tucked away in the recesses of their minds, locked tight behind walls built over years of survival and self-preservation. But this felt different. This wasn't just curiosity, it was invasion, a probing force that threatened to unravel everything he had worked so hard to keep hidden. "What do you want from me?" he asked, his voice rising slightly, betraying the unease bubbling beneath his carefully constructed facade. Her lips curved into what might have been a smile, though it lacked warmth or reassurance. Instead, it seemed predatory, anticipatory. "I want to know you," she said simply, stepping closer until the faint glow emanating from her skin illuminated his face. He could feel the heat of her presence now, not physical but emotional, an intensity that pressed against him like a storm gathering on the horizon. "Not the shell you present to others, not the mask you wear when the world watches. I want the truth, the raw, unfiltered essence of what makes you, you." Her words struck a chord deep within him, stirring memories he had long since buried. Memories of loss, of pain, of choices made in desperation. Choices he regretted but could never undo. He clenched his fists at his sides, nails digging into his palms as if the pain might anchor him, keep him grounded amidst the swirling chaos of emotions threatening to overwhelm him. "You don't understand," he muttered, looking away from her piercing gaze. Some things are better left hidden. Some truths, they destroy people. Her laughter was soft, but carried an edge that sent shivers down his spine. Destruction is merely transformation, she countered, her voice low and hypnotic. Do you think I am unaware of the fragility of your species? Your lives flicker like candle flames, extinguished by the slightest breeze. Yet in that fleeting existence, you carry such complexity, such depth. Do you truly believe I would come all this way, cross galaxies to stand before you, only to leave empty-handed? Her words unsettled him, not because they were cruel but because they rang with an undeniable truth. She wasn't here to harm him, at least, not in the conventional sense. She sought understanding, comprehension of a species so vastly different from her own. And yet, the cost of granting her request loomed large in his mind. To reveal himself, to let her see what he had spent years concealing, felt akin to tearing open old wounds and exposing them to salt water. Why should I trust you? He demanded, his voice trembling with a mix of anger and fear. You're asking me to bare my soul to someone who isn't even human. Someone who doesn't know our struggles, our pain. For the first time since their encounter began, her expression softened, the sharp edges of her curiosity giving way to something almost resembling empathy. Trust is earned, not demanded, she admitted, her tone quieter now, less commanding and more contemplative. But tell me this, has trust ever truly protected you? Has keeping your secrets brought you peace? The question hit him like a thunderclap, reverberating through the chambers of his heart. No, trust hadn't saved him. Neither had silence. If anything, those very things had isolated him further, trapping him in a prison of his own making. But letting go, letting someone else in, it felt impossible. Terrifying. Like standing on the edge of a cliff and knowing the fall would either kill him or set him free. Before he could respond, she reached out, her hand hovering inches from his chest. Though she didn't touch him, he felt it all the same, a pressure, a presence, as though she were peeling back layers of his being without laying a finger on him. His breath hitched, and for a brief moment, he thought he saw flashes of images, fragments of memories, snippets of emotions, reflected in her multifaceted eyes. "What are you doing?" he gasped, instinctively stepping back, though her influence followed him like a shadow. "Seeing," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the rustling leaves. "Not taking, not judging. Simply seeing." And then, without warning, the connection broke. She withdrew her hand, her expression unreadable once more. For a moment, they simply stared at one another, two beings separated by galaxies yet inexplicably drawn together by forces neither fully understood. The silence between them stretched taut, a fragile thread holding back the torrent of revelations that threatened to spill forth. He could feel it building inside him, a pressure mounting in his chest, urging him to speak, to release the burden he had carried alone for so long. But how could he begin? Where did one start when faced with the enormity of bearing their soul? "I lost someone," he said suddenly, the words tumbling out before he could stop them. His voice cracked, raw and unsteady, as if the admission physically pained him. "Someone I loved more than anything. Someone I failed." The princess didn't move, didn't interrupt. Her multifaceted eyes bore into him, absorbing every nuance of his confession. He found himself unable to look away, trapped in the gravitational pull of her unwavering attention. The forest around them seemed to fade into insignificance, the rustling leaves and distant owl calls becoming mere background noise to the drama unfolding between these two unlikely figures. "It happened 5 years ago," he continued, his voice gaining strength as the dam began to break. "We were working on a project that could have changed everything. A sustainable energy source that would have freed entire communities from corporate control. We were so close, Sarah and I. So close to changing the world." He paused, swallowing hard, the memory of her name tasting bittersweet on his tongue. "We worked late nights, pushing ourselves beyond reasonable limits. I remember the exact moment it happened. The explosion that took her life and left me with nothing but scars and regrets. We'd argued that evening. I'd told her we were moving too fast, taking too many risks. She accused me of losing faith in our dream. And then..." His voice faltered, breaking on the final word. The alien princess stepped closer, her shimmering form casting an ethereal glow over his hunched figure. Without thinking, he reached out and grasped her translucent hand, seeking comfort in its cool solidity. To his surprise, she didn't pull away but instead allowed the contact, her fingers curling slightly around his in a gesture that transcended species and understanding. "That's why I'm here," he confessed, his voice dropping to a whisper. "In this forest, far from civilization. I couldn't face anyone after what happened. Every time I looked in the mirror, I saw her accusing eyes. So I ran. I ran from my guilt, from my failure, from the world that expected me to pick up the pieces and continue as if nothing had changed." A single tear traced a path down his weathered cheek, catching the alien light and refracting it into a miniature rainbow. The princess watched it fall, her expression unreadable but somehow comforting. She raised her free hand and touched his face, wiping away the moisture with a tenderness that belied her otherworldly nature. "You carry more than grief," she observed softly. "There is anger, directed inward. There is fear, paralyzing and consuming. But beneath it all, there is still hope, a tiny flame refusing to be extinguished." Her words struck a chord deep within him, resonating with a truth he had long denied. Hope. That elusive concept he had tried to bury along with his dreams and aspirations. Yet here it was, acknowledged by this alien being who understood more about his human condition than most of his own species ever had. "But there's more," he admitted, feeling the weight of additional secrets pressing against his consciousness. The project, it wasn't just about helping people. There was money involved, investors demanding results. "I compromised our safety protocols to meet deadlines. If I hadn't pushed so hard, if I had listened to her concerns." His voice trailed off as shame overwhelmed him, threatening to drown the tentative connection they had forged. But instead of judgment, he found understanding in the princess's eyes. Not absolution, but recognition of the complex web of motivations and consequences that defined human existence. "There is beauty in your honesty," she murmured, her musical voice weaving through the night air like a healing balm. "Even in your darkest moments, you seek redemption. This is what fascinates me about your species, the capacity to acknowledge wrongdoing and strive for betterment, even when the path forward seems impossible." As she spoke, the forest around them seemed to respond, the trees swaying gently as if nodding in agreement. The boundary between their two worlds, human and alien, terrestrial and celestial, began to blur, creating a space where understanding could flourish without the constraints of cultural or biological differences. The man found himself leaning into her touch, drawing strength from her presence. For the first time in years, he felt seen, truly seen, not just as a collection of failures and regrets, but as a complex being capable of growth and change. The princess's eyes, those mesmerizing portals to unknown dimensions, reflected back at him not judgment, but possibility. "Show me more," she encouraged, her voice barely above a whisper. "Share with me the parts of yourself you've kept hidden even from your own reflection. Let me witness the full spectrum of your humanity." Her request sent a shiver down his spine, equal parts terrifying and liberating. With each secret revealed, he felt lighter, as if shedding layers of armor he had worn for so long they had become a second skin. Yet with this newfound vulnerability came an unexpected strength, the courage to confront the deepest, darkest corners of his soul. "There's something else," he began, his voice steadier now, carrying the weight of determination. "Something I haven't told anyone. Not even myself, really." He took a deep breath, feeling the cool night air fill his lungs. "I see her sometimes. Sarah. In the forest, in my dreams. She talks to me, tells me things." The princess's grip tightened ever so slightly on his hand, her interest palpable. "Continue," she urged, her multifaceted eyes glowing brighter with anticipation. "This manifestation of your grief, it intrigues me. Tell me how she appears to you, what she says." The man hesitated, torn between the need to share this intimate detail of his ongoing struggle and the fear of being dismissed as delusional. But in the princess's unwavering gaze, he found no judgment, only genuine curiosity and understanding that transcended human concepts of mental health and perception. "She comes to me at twilight," he explained, his voice taking on a dreamlike quality. "When the forest is painted in shades of gold and shadow. She looks exactly as she did before the accident. Sometimes she walks beside me, pointing out plants and animals I've never noticed before. Other times, she sits across from me at my makeshift table, drinking tea that never cools." He paused, searching the princess's face for any sign of disbelief or condescension. Instead, he found only rapt attention, her alien features arranged in an expression of profound interest. "The things she tells me," he continued, his voice dropping to a reverent whisper. "They're not memories. They're insights, wisdom I never possessed before. She explains the interconnectedness of all living things, how each organism contributes to the greater whole. She teaches me about patterns in nature, mathematical sequences that govern growth and decay. It's as if she's become part of the forest itself, speaking through its language." The princess's luminous form seemed to pulse with excitement, her shimmering skin reflecting the colors of the setting sun. "Fascinating," she breathed. "Your species' concept of death as an absolute end is so limiting. Here you stand, experiencing firsthand the continuation of consciousness beyond physical form. Tell me, does she ever speak of forgiveness?" The question struck him like a lightning bolt, illuminating dark corners of his psyche he had avoided exploring. Forgiveness. The word hung between them, heavy with implications he wasn't ready to face. He turned away, staring into the deepening shadows of the forest, watching as fireflies began their nightly dance among the ancient trees. "She hasn't," he admitted, his voice thick with emotion. "But I think that's what I'm waiting for. Not just her forgiveness, but my own. These visits, these lessons, they feel like penance, like I'm being given a chance to understand what I failed to grasp before." The princess moved to stand beside him, her presence casting an otherworldly glow over the forest floor. "Your species views forgiveness as a destination, a final absolution that ends the journey of guilt. But perhaps it is something more fluid, more integrated into the fabric of existence. Like the cycles of nature you observe in your forest." Her words resonated deeply, aligning with the lessons Sarah's spirit had been teaching him through the language of the wilderness. He watched as a moth fluttered past, its wings catching the last rays of sunlight, and realized how perfectly it illustrated her point. Transformation rather than termination, evolution rather than conclusion. "Do you believe she's really there?" the princess asked gently. "Or do you think your mind has created this manifestation as a coping mechanism?" The question forced him to confront the fundamental nature of his experiences. Was Sarah truly visiting him from beyond, or had his grief manifested her presence as a psychological salve? The distinction seemed less important than he would have thought. What mattered was the growth, the understanding, the healing that occurred regardless of the source. "I don't know," he answered honestly. "Maybe it doesn't matter. What she's teaching me, what I'm learning about myself and the world around me, that's real. Whether she's a ghost, a memory, or just my subconscious speaking in symbols, the impact is the same." The princess nodded, her multifaceted eyes reflecting the stars beginning to emerge in the twilight sky. "Your willingness to embrace uncertainty, to find value in experience regardless of its origin, this is wisdom beyond your years. Many of my kind spend lifetimes seeking such understanding." Her acknowledgement filled him with a warmth that spread from his chest outward, dissolving some of the remaining barriers he had erected around his heart. He realized that in sharing his deepest secret, his most vulnerable truth, he had formed a connection more profound than any he had experienced with fellow humans. This alien being, with her starlight skin and galaxy-filled eyes, understood aspects of his existence that had eluded even his closest companions. As they stood together, watching the forest transition from day to night, he felt the boundaries between their worlds continue to dissolve. The line between visitor and visited, observer and observed, became increasingly blurred. Through his openness, he had offered her insight into the human condition, while she had provided him with a perspective that transcended his limited understanding of life, death, and consciousness. Yet even as they shared this moment of mutual understanding, he sensed there was more to uncover, more layers to peel back. The princess's curiosity remained insatiable, her desire to comprehend the full spectrum of human experience undiminished. And within himself, he recognized a growing willingness to continue this exploration, to delve deeper into the mysteries of his own existence guided by her otherworldly insight. The forest around them seemed to hold its breath, the creatures of the night pausing in their activities as if aware of the significance of this human-alien communion. The air vibrated with potential, charged with the electricity of revelations yet to come. Their journey of discovery had only begun, each revelation leading naturally to new questions, new avenues of exploration that promised to challenge their understanding of reality itself. As the last light faded from the sky, painting the world in shades of indigo and silver, neither the man nor the princess moved to end their conversation. Instead, they remained locked in their shared moment of understanding, two beings from vastly different realms united by the universal quest for knowledge and connection. The secrets he had shared had opened doors to deeper truths, and both knew that the path ahead would lead them to even more profound discoveries about themselves, each other, and the intricate tapestry of existence that bound all sentient beings together. Their connection deepened with each passing moment, evolving beyond simple curiosity or confession into something far more profound. The man found himself reaching out with his mind, not consciously but instinctively, seeking to bridge the gap between their vastly different consciousnesses. To his astonishment, he felt a response, not in words, but in sensations, colors, and emotions that defied human categorization. It was as if the princess had opened a doorway in his mind, allowing him to glimpse the universe through her multifaceted perception. Through this newfound connection, he began to understand why she had sought him out. Her species, advanced beyond human comprehension, had reached a plateau in their evolution. They possessed knowledge and technology that made Earth's greatest achievements seem primitive, yet they lacked something essential: the raw, unfiltered emotional depth that characterized human existence. Her visit wasn't merely academic curiosity. It was a desperate search for the missing piece that could propel her people to their next stage of development. The realization struck him with the force of revelation. This wasn't just about him sharing his secrets or her understanding humanity. It was about two species standing on opposite shores of evolution, reaching out to complete each other's journeys. The weight of this responsibility settled upon his shoulders, heavier than any burden he had carried before, yet strangely liberating. For the first time in years, possibly ever, he felt truly significant, not because of his accomplishments or failures, but because of his potential to contribute to something greater than himself. The princess seemed to sense this shift in his understanding, her form glowing brighter as their mental connection strengthened. Through their link, he perceived flashes of her world. Crystalline cities floating in the void between stars, beings communicating through intricate patterns of light and sound, civilizations spanning millennia yet feeling trapped in their perfection. He saw their longing, their frustration with their own limitations, and most poignantly, their hope that humanity might hold the key to their continued evolution. In return, she delved deeper into his consciousness, not prying but gently exploring the labyrinth of human emotions and experiences. She witnessed the full spectrum of human history through his eyes, the triumphs and tragedies, the moments of pure joy and devastating sorrow, the endless cycle of creation and destruction that defined their existence. Each revelation seemed to resonate within her, triggering responses that rippled through their connection like waves across a cosmic ocean. Their physical forms became irrelevant as their consciousnesses intertwined, merging into a shared state of awareness that transcended individual identity. Time lost meaning. They existed simultaneously in the present moment and across the entirety of their respective histories. The forest around them transformed into a kaleidoscope of possibilities, each tree representing a branching path of potential futures, each leaf a decision yet to be made. Through this expanded awareness, they began to perceive the fundamental patterns underlying existence itself. Mathematics and music merged into a single language, describing the dance of subatomic particles and the rotation of galaxies with equal elegance. Emotions revealed themselves as complex equations, their solutions manifesting as physical phenomena that shaped reality at its most basic level. The distinction between thought and matter blurred, revealing a universe where consciousness actively participated in creation. Yet amidst this overwhelming revelation, a shadow emerged, a presence that had been watching their communion from the edges of perception. Something ancient and powerful stirred in the depths of spacetime, drawn to the unprecedented fusion of human and alien consciousness. The princess sensed it first, her form flickering like a dying star as she attempted to shield their connection from whatever approached. Through their link, he felt her fear, not for herself, but for him, for humanity, for the delicate balance of existence itself. The approaching entity defied description, existing simultaneously as a void and a presence, a silence that roared louder than any sound. It wasn't malevolent, but its nature was fundamentally incompatible with their fragile union. Like matter and antimatter meeting, Their existence threatened to annihilate each other. The princess began to withdraw, attempting to sever their connection before the inevitable collision, but he resisted, clinging to their shared consciousness with desperate determination. Through their link, he understood why she must leave, why their communion couldn't continue. But even as the separation began, something remarkable happened. Their combined consciousness spawned something new, a third state of being that incorporated elements of both while transcending their individual limitations. This new awareness hovered between them, a quantum state of potential that refused to collapse into either human or alien consciousness. The forest around them erupted in light, trees transforming into pillars of energy, the ground becoming a sea of vibrating possibility. Their physical forms destabilized, caught between states of matter and energy, human and alien, past and future. The approaching entity grew closer, its presence warping reality itself, bending light and time around its incomprehensible mass. In this moment of ultimate crisis, the man and the princess faced a choice that would define not just their fates, but potentially the future of both their species. Could their fledgling hybrid consciousness withstand the pressure of the approaching entity? Would their union create a new evolutionary path, or would it trigger a chain reaction that would unravel the fabric of reality itself? As their forms dissolved into pure energy, their consciousnesses merged completely, becoming something neither human nor alien, but something entirely new, a bridge between worlds, a synthesis of opposites that challenged the very definition of life and consciousness. The story continues to unfold, suspended between infinite possibilities, each moment pregnant with potential outcomes that ripple through the multiverse like waves across an endless ocean. The merged consciousness of the man and the princess expanded further, becoming a beacon of pure potential that pulsed with the rhythm of creation itself. The approaching entity, ancient, vast, and incomprehensible, halted its advance, as if startled by this unprecedented phenomenon. For the first time in eons, it hesitated, its form flickering between shadow and light, void and presence. Through their unified awareness, they understood what this entity truly was. Not an adversary, but a guardian, a cosmic force tasked with maintaining balance across the multiverse. It had come to intervene because their union threatened to disrupt the delicate equilibrium of existence. Yet now, sensing something extraordinary within their hybrid state, it paused, observing them with an intelligence far beyond anything either species could comprehend. The man-princess consciousness reached out, not in defiance, but in offering. They showed the guardian the truth of their bond, how two vastly different beings had transcended their limitations to create something new, something that enriched rather than destabilized the fabric of reality. They revealed the beauty of imperfection, the power of vulnerability, and the infinite possibilities born from connection. For a moment that stretched into eternity, the guardian considered. Then, slowly, it began to withdraw, its immense form dissolving back into the void from which it had emerged. But before it vanished completely, it left behind a gift, a fragment of itself, a seed of understanding that would allow the hybrid consciousness to continue evolving without threatening the cosmic order. As the guardian departed, the forest around them returned to normalcy, though nothing about their shared existence could be called normal anymore. Their physical forms reconstituted, but they were no longer separate beings. The man's human body shimmered with alien light, while the princess's ethereal form gained solidity and warmth. They stood together, yet apart, existing simultaneously as individuals and as one unified entity. "You have changed me," the princess said, her voice resonating with both her original melodic tone and the rough edges of human speech. "And I have changed you. We are neither what we were nor entirely something new." The man nodded, feeling the weight of her words settle deep within him. "We've become a bridge. Between your world and mine, between thought and matter, between life and whatever comes after." She smiled, her multifaceted eyes reflecting galaxies that seemed closer now, more intimate. "Yes. And bridges must serve a purpose. Our journey is not over. It has only begun." With that, she extended her hand, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually. He took it, and together they stepped forward, leaving the forest behind. As they walked, the boundary between earth and space dissolved, and they found themselves moving through realms that defied description. Stars became pathways, planets unfolded like petals, and time flowed backward and forward all at once. They traveled to her homeworld first, where her people greeted them with awe and reverence. Through their shared consciousness, they demonstrated the value of embracing imperfection, of allowing emotion and intuition to guide progress alongside logic and reason. The crystalline cities began to change, their rigid structures softening, their inhabitants learning to feel as deeply as they thought. Then they returned to Earth, appearing in cities and villages, forests and deserts, sharing their insights with humanity. They taught people how to see beyond surface differences, how to connect on levels deeper than language or culture. Wars ceased, not because conflict disappeared, but because understanding grew. Humanity began to evolve, not just technologically, but emotionally and spiritually. Yet even as they worked to uplift both species, they knew their time together was finite. The fusion of their consciousnesses, while stable for now, could not last forever. Eventually, the strain of existing in two states simultaneously would force them to choose, to remain united and risk unraveling entirely, or to separate and return to their original forms. One evening, under a sky filled with stars that seemed to pulse in time with their heartbeat, they faced this decision. Sitting beside a quiet lake that mirrored the heavens above, they held hands and spoke softly, their voices blending into a single harmonious melody. "I don't want to lose you," the man admitted, his voice trembling. "But I also know that holding on too tightly might destroy everything we've built." The princess nodded, tears, both human and alien, glistening in her eyes. "Love is not possession. It is growth. Perhaps our separation will allow us to grow even further, to carry what we've learned into our respective worlds and continue our work separately." They sat in silence for a long time, watching as the water rippled with the movements of unseen creatures beneath its surface. Finally, the man sighed and looked at her, really looked at her, memorizing every detail of her transformed face. "When we part," he said, "will I remember this? Will I remember you?" Her smile was bittersweet. "You will carry the essence of our union within you, even if the specifics fade. And I will do the same. Our connection will live on, not as a memory, but as a fundamental shift in who we are." With that, they rose together and walked to the center of the lake, their feet gliding effortlessly across the water. There, they embraced one final time, pouring every ounce of love, gratitude, and hope into the moment. Then, as gently as a leaf falling from a tree, they began to separate. The process was both painful and beautiful. Threads of light unraveled from their shared consciousness, returning to their rightful places within each of them. Memories blurred, emotions softened, but the core of their transformation remained intact. When it was done, they stood apart, fully themselves again, but forever changed. The princess stepped back, her form glowing brighter than ever before. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice carrying the weight of galaxies, "for showing me what it means to be alive." The man smiled through his tears. "And thank you for teaching me what it means to truly see." With that, she ascended into the sky, becoming a streak of light that joined the stars above. He watched until she disappeared, then turned back toward the forest where their journey had begun. Though he felt the absence of their connection keenly, he also felt something else, a profound sense of purpose, a drive to continue the work they had started. As he walked, the trees seemed to whisper secrets to him, the wind carried fragments of her laughter, and the earth beneath his feet pulsed with the rhythm of their shared heartbeat. He knew that while their physical union had ended, their legacy would endure, in the hearts of those they had touched, in the bridges they had built, and in the infinite possibilities they had unleashed upon the universe. And so, the story did not end. It simply transformed, branching into countless paths that would ripple through time and space for generations to come. The man and the princess, once strangers from distant worlds, had become catalysts for change, their love transcending boundaries and reshaping reality itself. In doing so, they proved that even in the vastness of the cosmos, connection is the most powerful force of all.